Welcome to Reverse. This is a special report on the past. Today I'm here to talk to you about an important event in history. Now a lot of you don't know, but this kidnapping and murder single-handedly sparked the start of the civil rights movement along with Rosa Parks. But now you're asking, who if it's not Rosa Parks? Well, his name is Emmett Till Case. Raised in Chicago with his mom, Mammy. They were African American, but at the time, slavery and racism wasn't as prominent in the North as it was in the South. Mammy was very aware of this when she went to send Emmett to visit his uncle, but Emmett didn't know not to be humble toward white people. His mom warned him before he went down to Mississippi. She told him to be very careful how he spoke and to say yes sir and yes ma'am and to not hesitate to humble himself if he had to get down on his knees. She was really trying to get the point across that Chicago was far from Mississippi and they were very different. She gave him the steps to even follow. If he met a white woman, he should step off the street, lower his head, and not look up. He found it ridiculous to act in such a manner toward another human, but who can blame him? Shortly after this talk with his mom, Emmett boarded the train to Mississippi and was greeted by his uncle Mose Wright and his cousins. They drove down to the town of Money, Mississippi, where his family resided, and unpacked. After he was done unpacking, Emmett and his cousins headed down to a local store. This local store, owned by, of course, whites, so they sat outside a bit before going in. Emmett was bragging about all his white women in Chicago in front of the store, so such things were unheard of in Mississippi because of the segregation in the state and Jim Crow laws. His cousins challenged him to go talk to the woman in the store behind the counter, Carolyn Bryant, and he didn't even hesitate. He went to buy a candy bar, and when she went to grab the money from his hand, he said, "How about a date, baby?" And she was appalled, as this was unheard of. As an African American, they were supposed to not even look at white women. She then tried to run, and he grabbed her hips and said, "I've been with white women before." Emmett's cousins grabbed him and took him out of the store. Miss Bryant came running after them with a shotgun, and the boys sped off in the pickup truck. The woman kept it a secret because she knew if she had told her husband, things were going to get bad quickly. Well, rumors circled the town, and by the time her husband, Roy Bryant, got back into town, he heard the rumors and asked his wife if they were true. She told him the truth, but begged him not to do anything to the boy as he didn't know better. They knew he wasn't a local. They knew he was from Chicago. As soon as Roy heard of the incident, he started plotting his revenge with his brother-in-law, J.W. Milam. On the evening of August 28th, around 2 o'clock in the morning, Milam, Bryant, and his wife drove down to Uncle Wright's home and demanded the boy from Mr. Wright, with a flashlight in one hand and a pistol in the other. Mose Wright told them he was in the back room, and they went in the back room, woke him up from his sleep, and made him get dressed to leave with them. Mose Wright begged and pleaded for them not to take his nephew, as he didn't know better because he was from Chicago. But that was the last time the Wrights saw Emmett alive, as he watched them carry Emmett into the pickup truck where Roy's wife was waiting to identify him. Milam, Roy, and Carolyn drove off. The men dropped Carolyn off at the house, took the boy to a tool shed where they tortured him until he regretted what he had done, but unfortunately he never showed any signs of sympathy. This angered Bryant and Milam, who drove Till to a quiet, secluded place on the Tallahassee River on Sunday morning around 7 in the morning. They gave Emmett a chance to apologize for his actions, but he refused. So Roy and Milam took a shotgun to his head and shot him on the right side just above his eye. After his brutal murder, the men then tied a barbed wire around his neck and attached a cotton gin fan to the barbed wire to weigh the boy's body down in the river. A day passed, and the Wrights sent out a search party. They filed a report and contacted Emmett's mother, Mammy. 3 days after the evening of his kidnapping, a boy who was checking his trot line discovered the body and called the sheriff's office immediately. The sheriff came with Mose Wright to identify the body, or what was left of it, and the ring Emmett was wearing, which was his father's, was found on the body. Mammy got informed about the finding of her son and requested he be shipped to Chicago so they could have the funeral and wake where he was born and raised. Mammy fainted when identifying the body at the train station, And from this point on, she knew she was not going to let her son's brutal murder sit in silence. Mamie Bradley decided to have an open casket funeral, which a few media journalists came to and photographed the body. And the open casket viewing attracted over 2,000 African Americans and sympathetic whites. The Jet, an African American weekly magazine, published the gruesome photo with Emmett's story, and it went mainstream in the media and the world. African Americans all over the United States were enraged at the racism still going on in the South. When the trial came, Emmett had several witnesses to his murder, but none of them wanted to speak up, fearing for their lives. Mose Wright proudly stood up on the witness stand and identified Roy Bryant and Milam as the men who came to his house and took Emmett away. This was the first time in history an African-American man had accused a white man of murder and kidnapping. The defense was doing anything they could to be claimed innocent and were sticking to their reasonable doubt argument. Sadly, the jury was elected from registered voters, and African-Americans were not allowed to vote in Mississippi at the time, so the jury consisted of strictly white men. No matter how many statements were made that made the pair guilty, the jury still knew from the start they were going to declare the defense innocent. This statement of innocence infuriated people all over the world, and they were not going to stand by as these two white men got away with murder of a 14-year-old African American from Chicago. Not even 3 months after the trial, Rosa Parks refused to give her seat up for a white man on the bus, and Martin Luther King Jr. became a major advocate for the civil rights movement.